Awesome. Okay. Now we're ready. So as we talk about the business of iridology, we want to be aware that as iridologists, we do need to be kept up to date. We need to know what the latest information is. And again, you've probably heard me say that a million times if you've been with me for 10 minutes or more, because it's really important. So as we talk about the business, I'm going to answer questions. And if you're with me live on the webinar, I would encourage you to type in any extra questions you might have. I will check those periodically. Although, like I said, yikes, I chose the wrong computer to do this on. That is a little tech faux pas. And we are going to just shrink that down a tad so I can bring this other window up so I can watch for chats and comments. There we go. Okay, I think we've got this ready to rock and roll. So for those of you who are with me on Instagram, we're going to do this a little differently. Usually you're used to looking at slides, but today you're going to be looking at my mug, as in my face. So we're going to pop this around. Hi, Instagram. Okay, you ready? All righty, let's get this working. Ooh, I need that a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. Just before we do that, I do want to invite you to join me for the next live session of Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Holistic Health Practitioners. Now, I am doing an introductory webinar, an info webinar on September 23rd. And for those of you who are with me live on this webinar, I will copy and paste that link into the comments so that you can see this. And here we go. And make sure I do this right so it goes out to everybody. Ta-da! There it is. Okay, so if you want to join me live on September 23rd, 5 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time to learn more about the program, I would love to have you with me. If you're on Instagram with me right now, I'm going to encourage you to DM your email address to me and I will send you the link. And in that webinar, we're going to talk about the benefits of the program, the benefits of learning iridology and using it with in your herbal or in your health coaching business. And I'm just going to give you a quick little 10-second synopsis of what is included in this program. This program, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Assessment System, is a program for herbalists, nutritionists, and naturopaths who want to streamline their client work without sacrificing client care. I find that a lot of holistic practitioners spend a lot of time outside of their actual paid client time creating programs for their clients. And that's time they're not being paid for. That makes me sad because that also makes it hard to pay the bills and have a decent living. So if you want to learn iridology, you want to learn how to use it in your holistic health practice, and you want to learn more than just what the markers are. You actually want to learn how the markers work together. You want to learn how to do an assessment and use the IRIS assessment to help you create what I call a best next steps program for your client that will take them to the next level in their health. And then you go back to the eyes to create the next step and back to the eyes to create the next step. Then join me on the 23rd for this webinar. And again, if you're with me on the Zoom right now, you've got that. And I will post this webinar link also in my Instagram in the feed for this video after we're done, because I can't do it right now. All right, so the goal of the program of Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Assessment System is, again, to help you create doable programs for your clients right in your client sessions. That's the whole goal of it, so that you can have a successful health practice business. So just before we answer any questions, answer the business questions we're going to address, would it be okay if we did an IRIS assessment? Yeah. So those of you on Instagram, we're going to turn my camera around and get you aimed at the screen. Actually, I'm going to hold my camera close so you can actually see what's going on here. Here we go. We're going to do this little IRIS assessment because I want you to see how easy and how effective this can really be. these are the eyes of a female in her mid-30s who came, this is the eye. So we've got one eye here, and we've done a blow up of it right here. And so this is a female mid-30s, came to me with fertility issues. She'd been trying to get pregnant for the last couple of years. She had conceived once, but she miscarried. I want you, as we look at this eye, to look at the layers that you see. Can you see that we've got depth here? It's like we're looking down into a little cutout. And we've got depth here, and we've got depth here. And it looks like this fiber is sitting on top of the surface of the iris. So we actually see some depth here as well. So we see here some real 3D perspective of what an iris looks like. So this is called the collarette, and it actually is a fiber that is laid on the surface of the iris. And it is more prominent in some eyes than it is in others, and there's no rhyme or reason to necessarily why it is that way, but it gives us great information. These eyes specifically, this eye specifically teaches us that there may be a personal or family history of what we consider to be the MTHFR defect, which is a genetic anomaly. And women who have the MTHFR defect actually are more prone to fertility challenges. This eye also suggests that there may be an inherent predisposition to some liver inefficiencies. Now, when you understand your anatomy and physiology, you understand that the liver has key roles in creating cholesterol and in actually regulating your hormone levels, because your phase 1 and phase 2 detox in the liver take care of breaking down hormones that have done their job already into non-hormonal components for phase 1. Phase 2 breaks them down into water-soluble components that can be excreted. When we see her eyes, we know, and we'll look at this bit of a blow up here, we see that there's that liver predisposition that suggests that that might be an issue for her. I also, with this eye, see indicators that she might have some inherent problems with metabolizing her carbohydrates. So she didn't know she had the MTHFR defect. Most people don't, unless they've done 23andMe or something like that. She also doesn't know for sure if she's got liver inefficiencies. But I want you to look really closely at this part of her eye right here. See how it looks a little bit milky, a little bit cloudy? That suggests specifically the liver enzyme insufficiency for metabolizing carbs. So I specifically asked her, do you crave carbohydrates? And she said yes. So we suggested cleaning that up. Now, she also had very lengthy periods that she'd started cleaning up her diet, and that was reducing the interval between her cycles, and that was great. When we are doing an iris analysis, we don't need to look at absolutely every single little mark that we see in here, because every mark in the eye is not relevant to what the client wants help with at this moment. So knowing that she was concerned about fertility, knowing that she had a long interval between her cycles, meant that I was looking for markers that would teach me about that, that would give me information about that. So that includes MTHFR, that includes liver enzymes, that includes carbohydrate metabolism. And when we did that, it took her just a few months to actually get pregnant, which was very exciting. Now, when we also focus on just the relevant marks for what the client is interested in at that particular point in time, it means that we are able to create programs that do not overwhelm our clients. We're able to create programs that are effective and beneficial without being all-encompassing, but they're very doable. So the client gets results because they were able to do it. So again, if you'd like a little information about the course, actually, let's pop back here. We'll do this slide at the end. I'm going to bring my camera back for those who are on Instagram, because now we're going to talk about the questions that I think are important when it comes to building a business with iridology. So if you're with me on the live webinar again, I just, you know, oh, you know what, Joan, thank you for that. Yeah, I forgot to share my screen. I'm so sorry. So we'll catch this eye again another time. And or you can hop on over to Instagram later on and look at the IGTV version of it. And that would be a way to catch the eye slides. My apologies. Thank you for letting me know that I had done something incorrectly. I sometimes do that. All right, so let's talk about the questions of running a business that involves iridology. Let me get my notes up here. Okay, so over the years of teaching, hi F.A. Port, so good to see you on Instagram. As I've been an iridologist for nearly 40 years, and as I've been doing a lot of webinars lately, this is what I have found. These are the questions that so many people have been asking me, and I wanted to make sure that we got these answered, and of course, any other questions you might have. So the very first question, and again, there's no right or wrong answers here. These are my answers to these questions based on all the years of experience that I've had. The first question is, how does using iridology with my clients help me in my business? Okay, because when you're a nutrition coach or a herbalist, or you're involved in holistic healing, so often what happens is you learn a new modality and then you don't use it because you don't know how to integrate it. And it just becomes another thing that you learned, that you spent time on, that you spent money on, and it's almost wasted because it's not being accessed frequently. What I find with iridology, and for those of you that are on Instagram, you may have seen the little iris assessment that I did. And those of you on the webinar, I'm sorry, I forgot to share my screen, but you heard the assessment. You heard how long it took me. It took me less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. So from that perspective, doing iridology the way I teach it helps you save time, because it helps you get to the root of the problem. It helps you understand your client's problems more quickly and easily. It helps to create rapport, because what happens with this is, as you're looking at their eyes, you've asked them, what are your symptoms? Now you're looking at their eyes and you're putting their symptoms together with what you see in their eyes. You're going to ask targeted questions that are relevant to that client in that moment. It's not like using a lengthy questionnaire that has 4 million questions that are relevant to some of your clients some of the time. We are lasering in for what's important for your clients at any given moment. It helps me to really focus on my clients' needs. It helps me to not wander off on important but related tangents that don't need to be addressed in this particular moment. It teaches me, again, what questions to ask my clients so I can stay grounded, I can stay connected. It is a non-invasive assessment tool, and it gives me a much deeper understanding of my client's needs. And those are all wonderful things. Again, this is actually a skill that will help you to integrate what you already know. So if you already know herbs or nutrition or homeopathy or flower essences or aromatherapy, understanding iridology is going to help you take the client's symptoms, understand them on a level that will help you to integrate the things you already know. It actually helps you to access the tools that you spent time and money learning and refining. Maybe they're tools that you've forgotten about as well, to bring them in to create cohesive and sensible programs for your client. So very important. So that's question number 1. Question number 2 that I get asked a lot, and you might be aware of some of this answer, is what styles of iridology have I studied? Because when you're online and you're surfing the net and you're in Facebook, you see a lot of different styles of iridology. If you go to YouTube, you're going to see a lot of styles. So originally, when I started 4 decades ago, I learned the Jensenian, the Dr. Bernard Jensen style. I practiced that for about 10 years, and my teacher back then was a first-generation Bernard Jensen student. She had studied with him twice face-to-face, and so she knew her stuff, and that was good. Then I learned the Rayid model, which was Denny Johnson. Jenny Johnson style. I learned it from a first generation student of his named Chris Smith. And again, she's lovely. She has since retired from teaching. And then I learned the constitutional style of iridology. Originally, when I learned it, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. I learned it from VHS videotapes. Yeah. Do you even know what a VHS videotape is? If you know what a VHS videotape is, put an LOL, a laugh out loud comment in the chat, whichever mode you're following me on. Because back then we didn't have the internet, we didn't have DVDs, we had VHS videotapes. And so when I learned about this, Joan knows what I'm talking about. Thanks, Joan. When I learned that there was this style of iridology, and Kelly still has lots of them. Do you have a machine that will play them? No, Kelly. That's my question. My VHS player died. I've kept my iridology VHS videotapes just as a memoir. You've got a machine that plays them, good for you. But you know, back then I found out about this style of iridology, and I wrote away, like I sent a letter with a stamp on it to the people who had created it, ordered their videos, they came by snail mail, and I spent hours going over these. Like, I think it's like 6 or 8 hours of training, but it probably over the time with all the studying took me 60 hours, because I would go through them and I would make notes and I would study them. Then I would look at eye images that I had, and I would really got into this, because the Jensenian style of iridology didn't work for me. So this is getting into the third question: which styles of iridology do I use now in my clinic rather, and why did I choose them? Well, with the Jensen style of iridology, I had been taught that all eyes should be blue or brown, there should be nothing else. I had been taught that if there was any other color in the eye, we needed to do a cleanse. We needed to, you know, really change the diet, use these supplements, do some fasts, do some cleansing, and that we could wash the pigment out of the eye that didn't belong there. I was also taught that as we look at fiber structure in an eye, that we could change that. So let me show you what I mean by fiber structure. And I just need to, I'm going to pop my camera around, but I also need to get to where, there we go, get to where I can share my screen so that my webinar attendees don't miss out on this piece. There we go, Joan, I remembered for you. And so what we look here, when we're talking about fiber structure, let me just pop this in. We're talking about those loop-de-loops. We're talking about the separations in the fiber. And I've been taught in Jensen that we could change that. We could close those loop-de-loops. And yet in the first 10 years of my practice, putting people through herbal programs, putting people through special diets and special fasts, and promising them that those kinds of markings would disappear, promising them that their eye color would change, never saw it happen once, never once. And so I started to get really frustrated. I was just about ready to leave iridology altogether and find another way of assessing my clients, when I learned the constitutional style. And the constitutional says the eyes don't change like that. There are ways that eyes do change, but the pigment is inherent. The eye color is inherent. That there are at least 3 categories of eyes: the blue eyes, the brown eyes, and the everything in between eyes, right? And we can subdivide them beyond there as well. And I've also studied Rayed with the lovely Chris Smith here in Calgary, but I ended up really focusing on constitutional with a little bit of Rayed around the edges. And so those are the styles that I work with. Those are the styles I teach the constitutional, and I dabble in the Rayed. I'm not as proficient with it, but I don't do Jensenian at all anymore. I understand Jensenian, but it didn't work for me. Question number 4, why do I love constitutional iridology? Well, I love constitutional iridology. Oops, I've just lost a screen. I need to keep up. Oops. There we go. Sorry, I just need to make sure I keep these windows open. And it's not working very well. Like I said, I chose the wrong computer today. if you're leaving me a chat, oh, there we go. I found it. Sorry, having a bit of a tech moment here. Okay, there we go. Why do I love constitutional iridology? I love it because it's based in science. There are ongoing correlative studies being done. Even now, there's one being done in California that has correlated particular things in the eye to the MTHFR defect, which is really cool. Like if you can look at an eye and say, you have an increased risk of the MTHFR defect, how much power does that give you to understand your client, understand their needs, and understand how to help them, right? So I love it for that. I love it because I'm still supported by my instructor, Bill Caradonna. Like I learned first from the videotapes. Yes, absolutely. That's not enough to call myself a great iridologist. That doesn't mean to sound like I'm boasting. But I've also, one of the gentlemen who was involved in creating those videos, his name is Bill Caradonna. I have brought him up to Alberta twice to teach certification programs way back in the early 1990s. I am still in touch with him. I actually still occasionally have a question and it's like, I don't know the answer to this. So I send Bill an email, or sometimes I'll chance a phone call, but he's a really busy naturopath now. So I'll usually email him. I know it's going to take him 2 or 3 weeks to get back to me. And I know when he does, it's going to be a 4-page response with every detail I could possibly need to know for that answer. And so that's another reason why I love this. I have studied the Jensenian style with several other teachers beyond my main teacher, and I had the experience in a live face-to-face class with images of eyes being shown up on the wall like slide projector style, if you remember what those are like. So these big 6-foot images of eyes, seeing a marking, going up to the screen and pointing to an exact marking and saying, what does this mean? And the instructor saying, I don't know what you're looking at. And then framing that mark with my hands like this and saying, this right here. And other students saying, yes, what is that? We've never seen that before. And the instructor saying, instead of saying, I don't know, but I'll find out, saying, I don't see what you're looking at. And so that was frustrating to have Bill Caradonna be able to actually coach me by email, or in the early days, it was a phone call where I would say, Bill, I'm looking at this, this, and this. What does it mean? And he would say, well, if you're seeing this, it means blah, blah, blah. But if you see that, you want to go blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he can't even see the pictures I'm looking at, but he knows what I'm doing. He understands what I'm seeing. And so that is why I love constitutional iridology. Not only am I finding it's, and for the past 30 years, I found it's accurate, it speeds up my work, but I love that Bill has not abandoned me as, as one of his students. Now, he's not a teacher anymore. Like I said, he's a busy naturopath, but for a length of time, he was the instructor of iridology for Bastyr Naturopathic University. So he's not just some dude. He's got some training under him. Question number 5 that I get asked a lot is certification important? And my answer to this is, depends on who I'm talking to. Okay, so let me explain that. You need to first decide how do you feel about certification? Are you the kind of practitioner who likes to say, I am certified, who likes to have the certificate to hang on the wall, who likes to have that as a milestone, as a marker? If you are, then certification is important to you. Rarely, though, will your clients ask if you're certified. They just think that it's really cool that you can look at their eyes and give them information. And so if the extra exams and the extra pressure of certification is not important to you, if you just want the information, if you just want to know how to do this and how to use it well, you might not need certification. So with that in mind, I don't ever push my students to certify. I offer to mentor them through the IPA certification process, but I don't push them to certify. Some people don't like taking tests. They don't do well on tests, and that kind of a test can really snowball you. And so some people take tests very well, and they love the experience of taking a test and doing well. Great. I'll support them however they need to. So we need to decide, who is the certification for? Is it for you? Is it for your clients? and then decide from there whether certification is what you need and what you want. So again, really, there's no right or wrong answer to is certification important? What does it take to be successful as an iridologist? This is question number 6. Well, first off, you've got to study hard, right? Learning to do iridology is not just about learning a specific marker. It is about learning the markers, what they mean in tandem with each other, what they mean in the physiology, how they correlate to your client's health. So you have to study hard. In order to be a good iridologist, you also have to be able to take correction. That may sound odd, but I find I learn best if I make a mistake. So I will approach Bill with a question and I'll say what I think the answer should be. And then he will tell me if I'm right and why I'm right, or if I'm wrong and why I'm wrong and what the correct answer is. So I think it's really important for you to be able to take correction if you want to be a good iridologist. You need to be open to ongoing learning. This is one of the challenges we have with so many of the old iridologists, is that they have not kept up with the new research, which is why their information is no longer valid. And so from that perspective, to be a good iridologist, you have to keep up on the latest research. You have to know what's being proven now, and you have to be willing to learn new concepts and let go of things as they become proved wrong. That can be challenging. If this is something that you've believed for a lot of years, and now we're saying it's not right, you need to let it go. You need to let it go, right? We need to be good iridologists, we need to be able to explain things very clearly. So you need to be a good communicator. You need to hone that skill. It's a skill anybody can learn, to explain what you're seeing in an eye, what it means for inherent potential, and to do that in a way that doesn't scare the daylights out of your clients, right? That's really important too. You also really need to have other modalities. To be a good iridologist, you need to have nutrition or herbology or flower essences or aromatherapy or some modality under your belt that you can draw on. It does absolutely no good for you to look at someone's eyes and say, well, your eyes suggest this. Is there a personal or family history of those problems? And your client says yes. And your answer is, well, I can't help you. You've got to go see a herbalist, or you've got to go see a nutritionist, right? You need to be able to offer your clients some answers and some solutions to what you are seeing in the conversation you're having with them. Question number 7. So this is the chance. If you've got questions I haven't covered yet, this is your chance to pop them in. We've got lots of people joining us on the Instagram feed. Thanks for being there. This is your chance to pop them into the chat so that we can make sure they get answered. How can we take our iridology practice from a paid by the hour, financially limiting business to a business that does not have an income cap? What do you think? Doing one-on-one sessions is great. To go beyond that, you do need to have a second stream of income. And I suggest 2 different things here. One is a second stream and one is how you work with the iridology. So the first one, the second stream, is if you're a nutritionist or herbalist or things like that, I suggest that you have a product line that you work with. A herb line, an oils line, a homeopathic line, something that you can sell to your clients to augment your income. Because iridology is a one-to-one practice. And so having a product to use on the side to recommend, I do not feel that's a conflict of interest whatsoever. And the reason I don't feel it's a conflict of interest is because if I recommend to a client that they need some N-acetylcysteine, and I send them to the health food store, they're going to find 4 or 5 different kinds of N-acetylcysteine on the shelf. And how do they know which one to use? I don't know which ones the health food store is carrying in stock right now. I don't know which ones are out of stock. If I recommend a specific brand, are they going to be able to get it there? Is my client going to go to Amazon and get something that may not actually be even N-acetylcysteine. It might be a pirated label on capsules that are filled with some kind of sugar, right? So I really think it is in our best interest to have that extra layer of having the client, having products for the clients. And I just need to do this so that my people there can still see my face. There we go. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is when you do iridology properly, and I remember I said we create programs that do not overwhelm our clients. In nutrition school, I was taught that what we need to do is we write basically a case study where we see the client once, we go off, we spend hours creating a report for them that tells them everything they're going to need to do for the rest of their life to stay healthy. Overwhelming, ineffective, client's not going to do it, you've just wasted your time, and they're not coming back. With iridology, when you do it the way I showed you or described to you earlier, where you look at their eyes, you ask them what their symptoms are, you choose the marks from their eyes that correlate with their symptoms, let that guide your questions. You come up with maybe 2 dietary recommendations, like narrow, not alkalize your diet. That's not a recommendation. That's a lifestyle change. So it might be things like drink more water, give up the coffee, right? You might recommend 2 herbal things. I want you to take a digestive enzyme, and here's the one I recommend, and I'm suggesting that you would also benefit from some omega-3s. Here's the one I recommend. I can provide those for you, right? And maybe a lifestyle thing, get out for a 30-minute walk every day. So you've kept your recommendations really tight and to the point, and you know then what needs to happen next. You've got them doing water, giving up coffee. Well, the next time you see them, you're going to work on getting more leafy greens and balancing out some protein for them. So as they're leaving their first appointment and they're going, I can totally do this. You're not like the other nutrition coach I saw who wanted me to like change everything. Great, we're going to have success here. As they're leaving, you say, when we see the results we want to see from these first changes, I have the next step planned. We'll be working on making sure you get enough of these minerals through your food. Right, so now your client sees that they've got homework to do. They need to stick to that homework really well, and that you have a plan. That encourages them to come back. Every time you see them, you do that. You plant the seed for the next appointment. When you've got this homework under your belt and we're seeing that you're getting results, which should be between 3 to 4 weeks in most cases, then we need to have you back, book the appointment before they leave, and we're going to be working on, give them a general description of what they'll be working on, not a specific of what the homework will be, but a general description. We're going to work on resolving that burping problem you've got, because that says you're not digesting well. That'll be our next step. Or we're going to work on enhancing your bowel movements because you're only pooping once every 4 days. We've got to get that happening. And by doing this, you generate repeat business, which is also good for you. It's also good for your client. Again, the product is not a conflict of interest, and neither is setting them up to come back, because you're giving them steps they can be successful with. As they are successful, they want to come back, and you've told them what they'll be working on next, right? That encourages rapport, it encourages success. And so that's what we want to do. Now, again, with the products that I use, that I recommend, Nature Sunshine products, I usually set my clients up with user accounts so they can reorder their products as they need to, when they need to. They get discounts, which is in their best interest. And again, there are commissions that I earn, and so that's good for me too. But it is saving my client money. I know the products they're getting. So if there's a question, if they're getting a symptom that is maybe a little bit weird, I can figure out why, because I know what they're using. They're not using random product X from the health food store. Okay. And so that is a really great thing to do. Now, we've got one question that's come in. Kelly, thank you for asking that. I have a bonus question before I get to Kelly's question. And here's the bonus question. If I become an iridologist, oh, actually this ties in with Kelly's question. How perfect. Do I have to buy an expensive iridology camera? Now I'm going to duck off the camera for just a minute because I'm going to show you my camera. And I'm also going to say, as a beginner iridologist, no, you don't need to buy a camera. And if you're one of my students, and if I hear you bought a camera, before you finish the course, we're going to have a conversation. It's not a good idea to do that. So let me just look on my desk. There it is. This is what I encourage my students to start with. This was purchased on Amazon. It is a lighted magnifier. It has 3 interchangeable powered lenses. This is what you start with. So for like 30 bucks, you too can have the equipment you need to start doing iridology. What I usually suggest is we start here and we stay here for a length of time. You may be able to get some usable, not great, but usable photos with your smartphone. But there's going to be a lot of scientific variables there, like you can't control the lighting, you can't really control the exposure, things like that. So it's not the best, but it's a starting point. What I encourage my students to do is this. When you finish the course and you're doing iridology with your handheld equipment and you love iridology and you're just feeling like, yeah, this is so fabulous. I love doing this. Then I suggest that every time you look at someone's eyes and it's in a paid session, you take 10 or 15 or $20 out of that session, out of the proceeds of that session, put them in a separate bank account or in a piggy bank on your desk or whatever. Save up the money to buy a camera. Don't go into debt for one. I never recommend going into debt because this kind of a setup in Canadian dollars is worth between $4,000 and $5,000 Canadian. So US, that's about 3,000 US. We've got a standard Canon Rebel. This is a T6i. It's about 3 years old now. You could probably use a T7i. There might even be a T8i by now. That would work. This is a 60 millimeter autofocus macro lens. And again, you can buy these pieces separately. Like you buy these, watch your camera stores for them to be on sale. Or if you've got a really great digital camera that is 24 megapixels or better, then you're set. You can use that. And then this end piece is the special piece because this goes right up against the person's face. So it blocks out the ambient light in the room. It's connected to the flash on your camera. So you bring this up to their face and it helps to focus. And then when you take their picture using this, they just get a little flash of light. We can change this. So we can change the lighting, which is super important, so that we can actually get different images, and different lighting gives us different features, helps us see different things. And so ultimately, if you want to do iridology professionally, you want to aim this direction, right? But until then, this is what you need. Awesome. So with that in mind, we're going to go back to our screen share. If you've got any more questions, please give them to me. And again, I haven't been able to check for them on Facebook because I'm just feeling a little tech challenged for the moment. If you already know that you want to take the iridology course, if you already know that, hop on over to iridology.education/course-info. That'll give you lots of information about it. And then feel free to reach out to me and to answer any other questions. Or join me for that webinar. And I posted the link on the webinar comments, and I'll post it all the other places that we actually are going to share this to on September 23rd, where I will answer questions for you as well. And again, from there, yeah, the course starts on October 7th, 5 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And all the rest of the details are on iridology.education/course-info. info. So I'm not seeing any other questions come through. We'll just do one more check in the chat. Excellent. Okay, so thank you so much for being with me today. I've enjoyed this. I hope you've learned something useful. I hope that helped to answer some questions about doing iridology as a business. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Take good care. Bye for now.